This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
From Philadelphia to Erie and from Scranton to Pittsburgh, it's Behind the Headlines. Hi, I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. I'm joined by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Maura, welcome to the show.
Hello, Charlie.
Why, in this pandemic, have you been vaccinated yet?
Not yet, no.
I haven't been able to secure one yet either. So I don't know. I've heard that in reaction, you've been doing a lot of hiking to get out of the house. Is that true?
That is true. It's been quite a mental health break to get out and go for a walk and get some fresh air on a daily basis, even in this bitter cold weather.
Well, I think you'll be happy to know then about today's guest. Today's guest is Cindy Adams Dunn, who is the Secretary of the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, who can tell us a lot about this subject. Secretary, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure, and it's so nice of you to take the time and join us and our audience. I think what we'd like to do to start out is, if you wouldn't mind spending just a moment talking about your department, what it does, and then I think maybe Maura wants to ask you questions about your background and a little bit about you.
Sure. And if we could be called the Department of the Outdoors, that would be a good name for us. But our official name is the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. And we're probably what you're thinking of. We're the 121 state parks. We're the 2.2 million acres of forest land owned by the Commonwealth, which means owned by the citizens of Pennsylvania. We have a grants program that reaches communities and local governments, and we have the Geologic Survey, which maps stream and floodplains and geologic resources of the Commonwealth. And we have a big infrastructure. People think of when people think of parks and forests, they think about scenes like the one behind me, but we actually have 4,700 buildings in the system. So we're actually a pretty big infrastructure agency, and we have a team of engineers and designers to keep that safe for the public.
So what makes you most comfortable in that environment behind you? What's your background?
Well, I'm a biologist by training, and when I was a college student, I actually thought I wanted to go deep and become the state's expert on some element of biology, but I quickly got wrapped up with trying to engage others in the outdoors. I was one of the fortunate ones. I grew up in a family that camped and fished and hiked, and I just realized how important it is for people to have that connection to the outdoors. And when we think about society, think about humans, we have a long historic connection to the outdoors, and people's mental health and physical health is just better when you're outside. So I became more interested in the education and engagement side of biology than perhaps the science. So my career has been spent focusing on that.
Well, I was surprised when you quoted the number. I think most Pennsylvanians don't have an idea of how many state parks there are in Pennsylvania. 121. Have there been a few added in recent years? Has that number gone up, or has it gone down, or has it stayed the same for a good long time?
It has slowly gone up. It hasn't gone up dramatically in the last 10 or even 20 years. But Dr. Maurice Goddard, who was the secretary of the agency for 5 different governors, had a goal of creating a state park within 25 miles of every Pennsylvanian. And keep in mind, the backdrop for this is that the public lands belong to all Pennsylvanians, right? So you should have them near all Pennsylvanians. So one was placed 25 miles from everybody. But today's society, people are very busy, and so our system of local parks and trails becomes very important to people's well-being and their recreational opportunity as well.
So tell us, I suspect I already know the answer to this, but what are you seeing with our state parks this past year because of the pandemic?
It's been amazing. I mean, we have career-long folks who have said they've never seen anything like it. I mean, from the earliest days of the pandemic, people flocked to the outdoors. And I think, number one, it was open. If you remember, even the original orders executive orders come out of the governor, it mentioned that outdoors and walking was essential. So it was in the same list with going for groceries and pharmaceuticals. So it was recognized early on, and people needed an outlet. Let's face it, we have, families under the same roof suddenly for work from home, school from home. And, people needed an outlet, and the outdoors were open. They're safe. I mean, you certainly be safe outdoors if you do it right. And people flock to the outdoors. I mean, we've seen numbers like we have never seen. Like, for instance, our state parks last year, like in 2019 rather, got a visitation of around 36 million, and or maybe 37. And then in 2020, due to the pandemic, we saw about 47 million visitors.
Wow.
And that's even with the big events being canceled. So all those big fairs and festivals and events at Point State Park in Pittsburgh, even with those events with thousands of people in them being canceled, we still saw this 9 million visit increase. So if you think about what does that really mean? In a Commonwealth like Pennsylvania with 13 million residents, to have 47 million visits in state parks means people are going, and they're going often. And it's great. I mean, it's a wonderful attribute that we have in Pennsylvania. We're really an outdoor state. I mean, think about, if you look at our numbers compared to other states, we're a state of hunting and fishing and hiking and biking and kayaking. It's in our culture, and we certainly have the opportunity.
You've had a good year for snowmobilers too.
Oh, the snowmobilers are having a ball.
They're so happy.
They are very happy. I'm proud that our staff are doing a great job of getting out there and running the groomers and making the best of the snow we had. We managed, with groomers and good management to spread snow around and keep the trails good for as long as we possibly could. This last weekend's rain wasn't great, so I haven't seen a report emergent from the rainfall, but it may be done. But we had a good run while it lasted.
Yeah, especially compared to last several years.
Yeah, and that's so good for the local economy at a time, when we need it. I think people realize what an economic driver recreation in the outdoors is. It's not only the tourism and the visitation, but the equipment and all the other goods and services people buy. The Outdoor Industry Association, which is an industry group, estimates that Pennsylvania is fifth in the nation and drives a $29 billion economy around outdoor recreation, and it supports 250,000 jobs. So it's big in Pennsylvania, obviously bigger than our surrounding states, and it's a very important part of our economy. And you mentioned the snowmobilers. One of my deputies bought a snowmobile, and that's a purchase. and then
Cheap.
a big purchase, and then used it a lot. Reported the gas stations, the takeouts, everything associated with it, the overnights, the B&Bs, everything associated with snowmobiling, gave a real boost to the economy up there, where let's face it, the economy needs that boost right now.
Well, Secretary, I don't know how Pennsylvania compares to other states in terms of user fees. Many states charge user fees for some of their parks and not for others. Where are we in Pennsylvania? Do we charge user fees for any of the parks, or are they all free?
Yeah, here's what we do. We don't charge people to come in. The thought being, these parks belong to all. You own them, they're yours. You walk in when you want, and you don't pay at the gate. And in fact, they're designed that the state roads and the township roads are the park roads. So it's not like we, think about some of the parks you may enjoy. They're not designed for a user fee kind of thing. However, when you're in the park and you rent a kayak or you rent a bicycle, or if you're at one of our concessionaire operations, like we have ski concessionaires running the ski slopes, we have whitewater concessionaires running the boats. And so we get a percentage of that, and actually that's a big augmentation to our budget. So we do very well on the financial side on the user fees and the concession agreements. These concessionaires are private businesses. We got about 121 of them in the system right now. And again, they sign an agreement with us, and we get a portion of the proceeds. So that's how the users support the parks. But you can walk into any park without the entrance fee. Interestingly, that's a big factor in our tourism. We do enjoy a lot of out-of-state visits. I know the out-of-state thing has been a little complex in COVID. However, out-of-state travelers are a desired commodity in normal times.
Mhm.
And the state parks really serve as kind of a bait, as you were, to bring people in, and then they spend a lot of money when they stay. State parks systems that have entrance fees, you won't get somebody from out of state deciding to spend $5, $8 just to visit and have a picnic or something. It just makes it's kind of a mental block for a lot of people. Anyway, we have that tradition of the state parks being there for everybody, being 25 miles from everybody. It's very much makes it available for everyone, regardless of your economic situation. And hopefully, if transportation's a issue, then, with the 25-mile distance, that's helpful as well. Some of the transit systems get there as well. But then we have the system of local parks that we support with our Keystone and Environmental Stewardship Fund. And in Pennsylvania, it's about 6,000 local parks. I mean, it's everything from the soccer fields to the playground to the swimming pools. And our grants program typically matches a municipality's money to create this opportunity close to home. And that's where people really want that to be close to home. If they're going after school to soccer, they want it to be close. People are busy, and we have a nice system of local parks as a result.
Mhm. Well,
So
I just go ahead, Maura.
Go ahead, Charlie. No, I just want to say there was a Penn State Harrisburg survey recently, and I just want to make sure that all of our viewers know that 86% of those who visited a state park did it for their mental and physical well-being. So I think if you haven't gotten out yet to a state park, you've got to do that. Now's the time to fall in love with them.
I would agree. We could, one of our partners, the Pennsylvania Park and Forest Foundation, has this state park passport. You can actually get online and order a passport, then you can take it around and get it stamped at all the parks. You could decide to hit them all. That would be fun.
Well, Secretary, unfortunately, we've run out of time already. Will you come back in the near future with us?
I'd love to. Yeah, I thought we could dive down on some specific recreational opportunities, and whether it's trails or paddling or fishing or just hiking in the state parks.
All right, you're on. Let's do it. And we want to thank you for being with us today. Stay tuned. We're coming up with another segment right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, the largest, most influential municipal association in the Commonwealth. Since 1921, PSATS has been preserving and strengthening township government and securing greater visibility and involvement for townships in the state and federal political arenas. Covering 95% of Pennsylvania's land mass, townships represent 5.5 million residents, more than any other type of political subdivision in Pennsylvania. Behind the Headlines is also brought to you by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, helping hospitals provide healing, health, and hope to communities across the state. And by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry. The Pennsylvania Chamber serves as the frontline advocate for business on Pennsylvania's Capitol Hill by influencing the legislative, regulatory, and judicial branches of state government. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Hi, welcome back to this segment of Behind the Headlines. On this segment, we are fortunate enough, Maura and I are being joined by Dave Sanko, who is the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Association of Township Supervisors. Welcome back to the show, Dave. It's nice to have you.
Good to be here. Thanks, Charlie.
Why, this is a great time to talk about budgets. In February, Governor Wolf announced his budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. And the governor, again, is proposing a state police tax, but this time with a twist. Can you briefly explain the fee, its history, and this year's twist? It's going to affect a lot more of Pennsylvanians this time, isn't it?
I think the governor has proposed a tax for state police services almost every year he's been in office, and an awful lot of folks think that they pay state income tax to get, and that covers their contribution to state police services. But in many instances, we're seeing the state wanting to put extra fees on, extra taxes on, and this is just the latest one. So for communities that may not have a local police department, who rely on the state police, they, in the past, the history was they were being asked to pay a fee. This time around, the governor is asking every community in Pennsylvania to pay a fee to help offset the costs of state police services, because indeed every community does use state police services, whether or not they have a local police department or not. In fact, the largest consumer of state police services is the city of Philadelphia, which has also the largest local police department in Pennsylvania. So there's no question that state police provides a baseline of services all over Pennsylvania, but I think there's also no question that Pennsylvanians pay an awful lot of taxes, and for that they expect some level of public safety, and public safety means state police coverage. And Pennsylvania has the oldest state police department in the country, proud service. And many communities are completely and totally satisfied with the level of service they get from state police. Others who have more challenges want to put on additional police, and that's certainly their right and their option, and should be a local choice.
So, Dave, another issue that never seems to go away too, proposal from the governor, is the severance tax on natural gas, which would be used for workforce development. Currently, there is an impact fee on in the areas where natural gas is extracted, and communities really benefit greatly from that impact fee. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between the two and what the impact might be if the severance tax does go into place?
Sure. Well, I think the impact, Pennsylvania is the only state in America that has an impact fee on natural gas. And what that means is that the funds that are collected from this precious natural resource are kept in the communities where the gas is harvested. So they are used to pay to help local communities pay for expenses associated with natural gas, from road infrastructure to water and sewer infrastructure to public safety initiatives, fire and police and EMS. So the impact fee allows for those dollars to be kept in the community where they can be most impacted. A severance tax, and what happens in most other states, the severance tax is collected at the state level. That means all that money leaves the local community, goes to Harrisburg, and I'm pretty sure we all know what happens when money goes to Harrisburg. It stays in Harrisburg, and that I think is the big difference between the impact fee and the severance tax, and it's who gets the money. So severance tax money stays in Harrisburg for spending. Impact fee money stays in a community.
Well, Dave,
So,
go ahead, Maura.
No, please, Charlie.
Well, Dave, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a huge influence as well on the governor's budget and on his priorities. He's expecting to see more financially distressed communities. What's your take on that? How are the townships weathering this year-long crisis, Dave?
I think the challenges to municipal government are, and what causes financial distress is not COVID related. I mean, financial distress in Pennsylvania is caused by unfunded mandates from state government and from the courts and from the federal government, and things that you're told you have to do and not given given money for those things. So if you want to address fiscal distress, you do mandate relief. Unfortunately, a lot of times when Harrisburg is doing their budgets, it's always about collecting more money to pay for more programs, never figuring out how to try and get along with what you have. I mean, as an example, turn back to the state police tax. I mean, we're looking to try and collect extra money, not because there are any more troopers, not because you will get any better service or any additional coverage, but because the costs of operating the state police continue to go up and up and up and up. And some of that are pension costs, which plague all of Pennsylvania. So it's not really trying to control spending as much as it is, let's just find new ways to be creative and get into the pockets of Pennsylvania. So, that's something that is foreign to municipal and local officials. That's not the way they run budgets. They live in those communities. Their residents, they see them at church and the ball fields and the post office and the grocery store. So they take offense if you say we're just going to raise your taxes to pay for things that you may not even want.
Dave, the governor also seems to think that one of the solutions to the financial strain might be consolidation of local governments, and I understand, might be putting a little bit of money towards that. How do you feel about that possibility, and do you agree with that as a probability?
I think our members, and I want to say 85% of our members, participate in shared services, doing joint projects and doing things together because it just makes sense and it saves money. They do joint purchasing through the Pennsylvania Co-Stars program, as an example, saving untold millions of dollars for their communities. So for communities who want to partner, who want to do things together, they should be encouraged to do that. Our objection is when you're forced to consolidate or forced to merge against the community's will, and I think that's the big distinction. And voluntary cooperation should be what we're focusing on, as opposed to forced mergers and consolidations. But again, the overarching theme is to go back to do some mandate relief. I mean, if state government wants to help local communities, take off some of the rules and the blinders and the handcuffs, and let them do their job as they would do in their communities, because they're responsive to their communities, and frankly, their communities aren't going to tolerate some of the nonsense and waste that goes on in Harrisburg and Washington.
Well, Dave, while we're on the topic of the pandemic, let's talk about something that's on the minds of many Pennsylvanians, and that's the vaccine and access to the vaccines. Your organization represents lots of rural townships where lots of older residents are having a lot of difficulty obtaining the vaccine, let alone an appointment. What's happening and what's the solution?
I think everybody kind of knows what's happening. When you see TV stations and media outlets put up programs called vaccination frustration, it kind of tells the story. There's Pennsylvania ranks near the bottom in terms of being able to get the vaccines out, to even beyond the supply question. My goodness, I mean, there's clearly more people who want vaccines than vaccine exists. But we've, in Pennsylvania, not even been able to figure out how to distribute the vaccine that we do get, and that's running a little behind. It's a little confusing. I mean, because there's the rules kind of keep changing. I mean, as you know, I was spent some time as the PEMA director with emergency management, and after September 11, there were a lot of plans put in place for a lot of different scenarios, including pandemics, including terror events.
Well, where are those plans right now, Dave? Why aren't they being used?
I'd have to defer to those in power. There's clearly reasons to update those plans, but I will tell you, I mean, I know there were plans that called on Pennsylvania's vast network of EMS providers and the National Guard to be able. I mean, they were tasked with doing the vaccinations the last time. Both in this instance have not been brought into play. There may be different reasons for that. I don't know what they are, but I know there's a tremendous amount of frustration on the part of citizens, and I know these are difficult decisions, and I don't take lightly, the task that the governor has before him, and that his advisors have. But there are national best practices, and I think we have to get past the finger pointing and do what's right. I mean, my goodness, we at local government level, we don't see some of the partisan bickering that you see in Washington and Harrisburg, because we've always said there's not a Republican or a Democrat way to fill a pothole, for goodness sakes. Well, you know what? I'm not sure there's a Republican or Democrat way to give out a vaccine either. So let's just get it done.
Well, we're going to keep our fingers crossed for that. And since we're on the theme of pandemic, typically this time of year, Dave, we'd be talking to you about your upcoming Township Supervisors Conference. What's going on?
Our members we normally would meet in April, just beginning of the month. We had to make the decision that we were not going to be able to meet due to the crowd size restrictions. I think we're hopeful. It's difficult to plan a large event like that, so we've been planning for it for a year. We have a lot of contracts in place that have to be honored. Clearly, as it got down to the wire where we are now, it became apparent that the safety guidelines would not allow the event to go forward. The space restrictions alone, classroom, and our conference is about a lot of education. So our general session, where we could have had 2,000 people, we would have been able to have 200 people at 10%, or now at the new 15% level, 300 people. But it's still a far cry. That's not even half the voting delegates. In our classrooms, instead of being able to have 75 people, we would be able to have less than 20. And I think nobody was looking forward to making a trip to come and learn and network and try and figure out how to better serve their residents, and being met at every door with somebody holding a sign saying we're full. So the board made a determination to, in the interest of safety and trying to get the information out, to postpone or to cancel this year's conference.
Well, Dave,
but we're going to.
I was going to say, we're going to have to check. We're going to have to stop you there, and we're going to have to check in with you next year on next year's conference.
Very good.
But this year, you have to take a postponement, right?
We will. We're going to deliver a little bit differently. We'll still do the workshops online. We'll do a general session, a voting session in October.
Okay.
No trade.
Well, thanks again for being with Maura and me today, and we hope that you'll join us next week for another episode of Behind the Headlines. We'll see you then.